So in this video, I'll be talking about how you can write your letter of explanation for your Canada study permit application. Your letter of explanation is more like your cover letter. So think about applying for a job. If your CV or your resume is the best, but your cover letter is really poorly written, it's still going to be a red flag, okay? So it's the same thing for your Canada study permit application. If all your documents are really nice, but you can't really articulately express yourself in the letter of explanation in a way to convince the visa officer, especially when you have a very, roller coaster background, then it's going to be a problem. So in this video, I will talk about 10 things or 10 different steps or ideas that you should consider including in your letter of explanation. Now, the first thing is going to be, some people ask, do I need address? Do I need to have my address and put the address of the immigration? No, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to add it. You can just start with letter of explanation for study permit application. Dear visa officer, you can just start writing. You don't have to start saluting and say, Canada immigration, blah, blah, blah. This country, put your address. It doesn't really matter. Start with just that formal salute and dear visa officer, that's about it. Now, this very first paragraph should be talking about the purpose of this letter, right? Applying for study permit to enable me study a Masters of Engineering at University of Calgary starting in September of 2025, right? And in this video, it's a you can also mention if it's a 2-year program, diploma, whatever kind of program you're having. And then talk about the end date as well if it's a 2-year program. And then you can say, the purpose of this letter is to provide additional clarifications of the minimum motivation to choose a program, or finances, by post-graduation plans and all that. That should be, the first paragraph. Now, this is just a template that I'm giving. There is really no best template to use for your letter of explanation. Okay, this is just from experience and from a lot of samples that I've seen over the years. So you don't have to follow this. It's just my own style. My own the way I like it to be written. And then number one, talk about the purpose. That should be one paragraph. It shouldn't be more than 5-6 lines. I've seen people writing the first paragraph like 8-10 lines. Sometimes it gets too much, okay? The second paragraph is just talk about your educational work experience. Now, if you just finished your high school, it's okay to say, well, I recently completed my high school in this year. Now I'm applying for a bachelor's degree or I'm applying for a diploma. If you already have a bachelor's degree, there is no reason why you'll be mentioning your high school. Nobody really cares about that now. I've seen cases where people even go as far as talking about, this is my age, I'm from a family of 4, all those things are not really important now. Just talk about, you can even start with, I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and I finished that in 2005. And I also have a master's degree. Now I'm applying for PhD. You already mentioned that in the first paragraph. That from high school, just say I recently completed my high school. I'm applying for a bachelor's degree to enable me do this, blah, blah, blah. And then after talking about that, you need to also mention your current work experience. I've seen cases where people narrate like a resume. They narrate all the experience they've had in the past 15 years. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really add to your application because for the most part, you are applying for for a program in Canada based on your current profile, okay? I usually say anything more than 5 years is not relevant. If you even just talk about, if you've been working in a place for the past 4 years or 3 years, then you should just talk about that. You don't need to talk about, I work in so place 7 years ago. No one really care about that, okay? Talk about that current position. Now, end that paragraph. Let's say I'm currently working as a supervisor in this company. I've been working on that company for 2-3 years. However, so this is going to be the hook, okay? In 1 or 2 lines, you have to mention that there is a gap there is a limitation in my current job. I've not been able to experience the kind of growth that I desire. That is what motivated me to apply for this program, Masters in Management or MBA at the University of New Brunswick. Now it's kind of getting interesting to them. You have to build a story and make them follow along. Okay, anything that is not relevant, just leave that out. Okay. In the next paragraph, I would say 1 to 2 paragraphs, you have to now give specific examples as to how the limitation, the gap that you have in your knowledge, you have to now give context. Okay. I've been working as a supervisor, the number of people I'm managing has increased in the last couple of months, and having to manage them has really become problematic. You just outline them in 1 or 2 paragraphs, very detailed. You have to talk about the challenges, okay? That way, when you are going to the next paragraph to talk about how you chose the program, it becomes reasonable. I'll say 1 to 2 paragraphs maximum for this, to talk about the motivation why you chose the particular program that you have chosen. The next thing is to talk about, maybe in 1 paragraph, talk about some of the courses that will be offered in a program and how those programs will benefit you. Okay, you've already mentioned your challenges. Now, talk about these courses and mention how do we address these challenges and these limitations or this gap that you have. I would say usually 1 to 2 paragraphs for this. It's reasonable. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about now is, why did you choose this school? This should be maximum of 1 paragraph. I chose the University of Manitoba, because they offer hands-on experience, and, the international community is vibrant, and they are the leading university. All of this, you should say in that next paragraph of why you chose the university. If you want to put a label on them or a title or a heading for each of the paragraph, is fine, but you don't have to. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is, why did you choose Canada? There are a lot of countries in the world. Why did you choose Canada? So you have to mention in 1 paragraph, multicultural nature of Canada, best place for international students, they have reasonable tuition and all of this. You have to try to hype Canada in this particular instance. Okay, just talk about how good and beautiful the country is and all of these things. The next thing you want to talk about is your finances. Okay, you can dedicate like 1 to 2 paragraphs to this. You have to talk about who is acting as your sponsor. Are you sponsoring yourself? How much you have in your account. If your sponsor is showing their bank statement, you can also mention how much they are showing or how much they've agreed to give to you. This is why you also give a little bit of hint. If you sold the property or you sold the car, you can also mention this briefly here that, part of this fund is from landed property. And then if these are from your savings, you can also mention that. Write it in your local currency, and then you can put it in bracket, put the equivalent of Canadian dollars. If you got scholarship or loan, you can also mention it. Just, write it in such a way that if they read only this paragraph, by the time they are reading through or seeing your other documents for proof of funds, it's going to make more sense to them, okay? That's going to be for the proof of funds. And if your family member is also sponsoring you, you can also mention their name here. The 8th thing is, this is actually going to be my favorite, okay? In fact, I have 2 favorite part of letter of explanation. The first part, what I've talked about, the justification about why you chose the course. You have to identify, make it compelling, make it see that there is something missing, there is a gap, this, your future career and all that. Talk about that gap and limitation. Talked about that in the past. The next one is going to be your post-graduation plans. You should not avoid this. I would say spend 2 paragraphs to talk about this. When you come back to your home country, what are you going to do with the course that you've applied for? How is the course going to help you? If you have a company or as an employee to your country, it has to be very detailed and very compelling. Kind of think about this letter like, you are with the visa officer, you're talking to the visa officer face to face, and the visa officer will ask you, okay, when you come back to your country, what plans do you have? So you have to, I would say, take time to really do research. If you have potential employment opportunities that you want to explore, this is where you write them, okay? Because I've seen cases where if you apply for a position, sometimes you see some visa refusal, and the visa officer will say, I'm not really convinced that you are making this huge effort in trying to study this course, and we don't really see if it's economically relevant in your home country. Then you can talk about the potential salary that you might get in this course, if you get an employment in this area and all that. The next part is going to be family ties, okay? Now, I want to really address this. When you talk about home ties, it's a little bit different from family ties. I mean, it's relatively close, but family ties is your family, right? Brothers, if you have your family, father, mother, back home, yeah, those are really good family ties. The best thing you can use for your home tie is your post-graduation plan. Now, I've asked people, now you have your mom is back in your home country. You finish your program, you're not going back to your country because your mom is in your home country. That is not, a strong enough reason to come back home. Or maybe your dad has a business and that business doesn't relate to you at all. That is no reason for you to come back. Or if you have a sibling or not, that is still not a sufficient reason in a real sense. Nobody's going to say, oh, I finished my master's in Canada. I'm taking the next flight home because my sibling is back home in my country. It doesn't work like that, okay? That's why you have to talk about your concrete plan. You have to say it in such a way that it's almost like if I don't do this thing, like I'm not going to rest. So I really have to come back because I have this huge plan, of what I really want to do when I graduate from the college or university in Canada, okay? Then the last thing is going to be final remarks. Okay, before I say that, if your family member, let's say your children or your spouse, if they are following you, this is a part to actually still mention that they are going to be following. Maybe one paragraph to talk about why they are following you. If they are not following you, can also mention why they are not following you. And then, once you're done with that, if there's any other thing you haven't talked about, you can put it in the next paragraph. And then the last part is going to be final remarks and conclusion, okay? This is where if you have any past travel history, you can also mention that. Not compulsory. I don't think they would deny somebody because they don't have a travel history these days, okay? So you've been to Canada before, you can mention it. If you haven't, it's fine. Not a problem. If you have traveled to other countries, you should also mention it. And then this is when you also emphasize and say, I know Canada, getting a Canada study permit is it's not a privilege, right? Know that getting Canada study is not my right. It's not that I deserve it, okay? It's just a privilege that you're giving to study in Canada. I appreciate the visa officer for that, and promise that when you get the study permit, when you are in Canada, you're not going to violate any condition associated with the study permit. And with that, the last part is going to be you can list the documents that are attaching to the client information, especially, okay? Your letter of explanation, police report, your education credentials. Sometimes people can list what they are including under the finances here. It doesn't really matter. You can do that, but just list it for themselves. But when they are going through, they already have an idea of what they are going to go through. Now, I know this is a lot, and sometimes people may need template here and there on how to write this letter of explanation. If you need a specific template and further guide further mentorship as regards this whole application process, there's going to be a link in the description. I have a very nice one-on-one mentorship. I'll be able to provide you 1 or 2 insights, give you feedback on your letter of explanation and other documents for your application. I can give you a little bit of insight, and then I can tell you where to find the relevant information, on the IRCC website. I'll put the link in the description. Reach out to me, send me an email. I'll be glad to help you. If you really like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know which part of the application of this letter of explanation are you struggling with. Put it in the comment section. Which part of them do you really resonated? Put it in the comment section. And then also let me know which stage are you now in your study permit application. Also put it in the comment section. And then let me know where you're watching from. I want to know, if most of the people are watching from Mars, from Jupiter, from the different countries in Africa, Europe, and all that. Okay, nobody's going to be watching my video from space. That's going to be it from this video. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.